Part 3 of Sovereignty and Recognition was recorded at Musgrave Park at an event held by Mirrabooka Sovereign Sisters on Yuggera Nation.
This is my evaluation, by the way. I'm not saying that I'm correct and everyone is wrong. It's just an angle that I'm coming in from. And other people have information just as important as mine, maybe even more information than me. But this is an angle that I'm going to be looking at today, which is coming from what I believe the Westminster system is doing and how it looks like from their perspective, not from our perspective from a spiritual sense. This is our sovereignty. They can't take it from us. I'm showing pretty much how the government is usurping us out of their Westminster system. Okay, so sovereignty was basically placed into the Westminster system via the Mabo case because of the terra nullius. Mabo was good and bad for us, the case itself. The good thing was it threw out terra nullius, and all of a sudden, bang, right across Australia, our sovereign lands are ours, and they've lost their jurisdiction. So they had, the government basically had, this is their sovereignty. They had this like real gathered claim to sovereignty based on terra nullius. Mabo case comes along, Mabo too. And bang, it's like, whoa, they like this here. Nothing. They shut down media all over Australia for a year. No media was allowed to report on that case for 12 months after Mabo too, because they didn't want anyone to accidentally slip out. They are like this, I think, and we're like this. We were actually the authority of the country from that case. The only thing that they did was move a native title case across, which was the first case, Mabo case. And they pretty much just had that. But there was like a 6-month gap, there was nothing. Yeah. But before the Mabo case, I'll just go backwards a bit. When the first settlement came to Australia, they set up as a penal colony of Britain. So a penal colony is not a colony of its own with its own sovereignty. It's basically they're just looking for a jail. They ran out of land in Britain. They were using America as a dumping ground. They ran for independence and they're like, oh, we've lost our land. They shot straight down to Australia. And they had their eyes on Australia for a while. But it was the American independence that made them push through. The French also wanted Australia, but I won't go into the whole French versus Britain, Spanish and Dutch. There's a massive history on that, and that does throw a sovereignty spanner at the government, but that would have to be on another occasion. So anyways, the New South Wales colony was set up first. And then from the New South Wales colony, Tasmania was part of New South Wales. Eventually it separated. Then Queensland, Victoria, Adelaide, Western Australia was the last one. Northern Territory and Canberra ACT were basically granted from New South Wales to get the Commonwealth up. But pretty much all our legislations for our Aboriginal people were state legislations. Yep. On this side here, the most important side, is our nations. This is what we look like. I mean, it's probably a little bit different because I think that's just an interpretation also from an early person who was documenting us early days. Some of the boundaries aren't correct, but roughly this is what we look like. Now, on here, each Aboriginal nation or each First Nation is its own sovereign state. That's how we were existing. We were all sovereign states. So Australia was a multi-sovereign state country, all working together and with understanding borders and boundaries and so forth. One mob couldn't speak for another unless there was a cultural protocol, so forth, and I think we all know that. But these were our sovereign states. There would have been about 500 sovereign states in our country, as opposed to when British mob come here, they've got their sovereign states there, even though they weren't legit. they were only set up on the pretense of terra nullius. So I'm just going to be referring to this because when you take this away, you'll be able to follow as well. So that's what a sovereign state is where you've got a landmass, and I think that's the best way to align it with, as our nations. They governed themselves, they had their own laws, they had their own dances, they looked after themselves, all within that land boundary, making them that sovereign state. So then we've got Commonwealth, 1901. They used the land from ACT, Canberra, that was granted from New South Wales, to actually make the Commonwealth occur. So it's like another sovereign state, as opposed to all these small sovereign states. What we're up against at the moment is this Commonwealth sovereign state hijacking the states and territories' jurisdictions, wanting to hijack our nations out. We're also one sovereign state, Aboriginal. Not everybody goes with Aboriginal, by the way. Like OSTF, they go, we're ditching the word Aboriginal, we're sovereigns. And then you've got other mob like, what's his name, Mirrabooka, who has gone, no, we're just going to take our nation. We're ditching any name given to us by any British person, and we're going independent through this way. So there are different ways that sovereignty exists as a state, but I'm just covering Aboriginal sovereignty at the moment because that is what the government, Tony Abbott, would sweat blood for to get rid of. So, and that's also the Aboriginal Embassy in Canberra, and what that is, this is the sovereign state. What's missing on here is the Torres Strait Islands, who have another flag, a separate sovereign state. So when you hear the government try and say Indigenous, all of a sudden they're trying to merge the sovereign states and assimilate again. In a way, this is an assimilation out of the tribes, which is sort of why we need a treaty if we was to go down this path, because one mob, as we know, can only speak for another. And what's happened is we only come under this and we don't have protocols and cultural, things in place. Then we have people like Warren Mundine being able to speak for another mob and using that flag and making decisions out in the desert. So this is a red alert on how this should work. We actually need cultural protocols, a treaty in place to protect other nations under here, if we are to follow this way. And I'm not saying do or don't, but that's, just my understanding of what should happen. So basically, we've got the Commonwealth, and I went back to Mabo. So from the Mabo, when they got rid of terra nullius, they ended up with nothing, because terra nullius wiped it clean, and it was a real. They're still recovering from Mabo case, by the way. That's consistently just trying to get out of it. So that is the first native title. Then we've got the Magnificent Seven, which is who are Noel Pearson, Marshall Langton, Lois O'Donoghue, all them, Mick Dodson, Patrick Dodson. After the Mabo case number two, they consented on behalf of the Aboriginal nation for the land right, for the Native Title Act. Now, because of terra nullius being wiped out and our sovereignty gained weight inside their Westminster system, the British law precedent still exactly had to come through then, which was, Governor Phillip's instructions to gain the full and informed consent of the natives. That was the writing back then. And so to get consent they actually went to the Magnificent Seven to get authorisation to make a law for us. Because also under British law, the Australia Act, 1875, also you've got the 1875 Pacific Islanders Act, and then you've got the Australia Act. They're all British Acts of Parliament. So the Australia Act is subject to British law, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, so the Australia Act 1901 is a British law, is a British Act of Parliament. And so the 1875 Act is also, Pacific Islanders Act is also a British Act of Parliament. And it was affecting the legislations for the Australia Act. So still, according to the 1875 Pacific Islanders Act, again, they had to get the consent of our people, the full and informed consent. So by them going to Noel Pearson, the Magnificent Seven and all these fellows, was a breach of that act, because that's not full and informed consent. And we've never given them a mandate. We've never voted them in and said, you may speak on behalf of us and do whatever. Yep. So that is a breach of that act. So anyways, they've authorised in an illegitimate matter the Native Title Act. So then we've got Kununurra jumping on next. And they come along and become part of native title. All of a sudden, this sovereignty is starting to grow for the first time since Mabo, because they have usurped from here. And if we don't oppose this native title and go, okay, or whatever, if we're saying, yeah, this is all right, we're acquiescing. Legitimate pathway of sovereignty transfer happening. Then we have, say, the waterways, and the government always getting consent. They go and create a committee, and they've got this mob, and they sit them down. We want to do this to the waterways, and we want to protect it, and we're being respectful, and we want you to be part of it. And everyone's like, yes, yes, thank you, cool. Handing over the authority. They just get a bit heavier over here, and we just get a bit less because we've signed them in. They now run our waterways, and we don't. Handed the control over, and it's now a legislation. And this will go on further. There'll be other consent processes, and they just get getting bigger and bigger and usurping all the time. And over here, we've got more of that one to do. Say the Queen rocks up to Australia and goes to Canberra, and all of them will go, welcome, welcome, Queen, come in. And no treaty, don't worry about that, just come in, we'll welcome, welcome. Yeah. And it just stamps them a bit further that they're here. We didn't war with them, we didn't oppose them, there was no resistance. We accepted them in, welcome to country. And this keeps going on around the country, and we'll welcome in, we're not resisting you. And they're just welcomed here. What's the problem? They're usurping us. And then we're down to this. All of a sudden, we probably would have went down right here. And all of a sudden, the 40th anniversary comes along at 10 Embassy. And we're like, oh, the 10 Embassy. And I was actually asked by the elders to actually reignite that flame. And that was the pivotal point where I come across from the desert. And I didn't know anything about sovereignty. And so we had a meeting, and they're like, well, we want you to have a Twitter account. I'm still hopeless at Twitter, Facebook account, and get the word out. And so I asked permission to get some other family members involved, because we had to be all elder endorsed and so forth. So I could, and I basically got brains involved, like my cousin who's got a PhD and stuff like that, like I need help here. And so we could actually strategise and actually really rebuild, because the whole nation was quite oppressed, suppressed, and the word sovereignty, I never even heard about it. Like, it was just a forgotten term, and it was dormant back then anyway. So we started the Aboriginal 10 Embassy page, and all of a sudden, and everyone was like clicking like, and all of a sudden, and everyone's like, 10 Embassy 40th coming up. Everyone started to inflame up, and everyone started to talk about sovereignty. And we start lifting this flame back, and we start pulling it back. And then to actually give it a bit of help, we started other pages like Aboriginal sovereignty and all these other pages, and started really researching and learning on the job and interviewing elders and talking constantly on the phone. Do you think this and that, blah, 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 blah. And we really started to really make this happen. We started doing a little bit of this, like pulling on this side. We never pulled these back over the line, by the way. What we've actually been pulling at and giving them a hard time. It's not an easy journey just to sit here. We're constantly over here pulling from this end. So this is basically what sovereignty looks like today. And I've been saying for ages, I've been like, sovereignty, we're hanging onto it by a thread.
Land rights, land rights, land rights, land rights, land rights, land rights, land rights.
Baby smelling like fire for the consciousness and new designer.
There's one thing that keeps us bound together as Aboriginal people. That's our songwriting, that's our story, our dance, our music. All of these things make us one. And no matter what part of the country you are in, people can connect themselves to you through the songwriting. And for that we have dance, song, music, story, that gives us our unification. What's already there. It's our religion, it's our belief, it's our creation. It makes us one. Many languages.